I am back and I am attempting to do a full tutorial for this sweet little 6.5 by 6.5 mini album that I made using the Echo Park Hello Valentine collection available at countrycraftcreations.com. And I have posted a little walkthrough video. I've posted a how-to on these little decorative or flaps on here. And I have also posted a little tutorial on the twist and pop element. But I am now getting ready to do the entire album. I'm going to make a couple changes, however, because I don't have enough of this collection to make it in this paper again, although truth be told, I've ordered more. There is plenty available at Country Craft Creations. I just didn't have enough to duplicate this one here in the time frame that I wanted to make this tutorial. So instead, I am going to be using the Echo Park Winter Collection that is also available on countrycraftcreations.com. And I'm going to be using several elements from this. I am going to mostly use the 12 by 12 collection that you see here, but I'm also going to supplement with some of the 6 by 6 papers. And there's a few reasons for that, mostly because when you get into the 6 by 6 papers, you have smaller scale on some of the patterns. And there's just some places that I would like to have that smaller scale element for my album. I almost always pick up at least the 24 sheet, if not the 48 sheet of the 6 by 6 paper pad with the collections that I purchased from Echo Park. And the reason being is that I can then use this. It's great for making cards. And so the scraps that I'll have left over from making albums and such, I will use to make cards. And this is a wonderful, again, it's scaled to the size to make cards with. So I am also going to pull some pieces from the chipboards and phrases, the chipboard accents, the chipboard frames, which I've already been playing around with, as you can see. And then I'm not sure if I'm going to get a chance to use these or not, but I do always like to use the decorative brads and other kind of dimensional elements here. This one especially has a lot of bling to it, and I really like that. I am also going to use artisan cardstock, which is exclusive at countrycraftcreations.com. And I'm going to use three of them. There's the baby blue color, there is the dark navy color, and then for the base of the album and the pages, I'm going to use the craft color cardstock. So those are the materials that I'm going to use. I'll have everything linked below, and let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I did create a cutting guide, and I created the cutting guide by going back and measuring what I made in this album. When I make albums, I just sort of make them up as I go, and I don't really think a lot about it. So this was a really good exercise for me in sort of even understanding my own process and how I make things. So I've taken the measurements from this album that I've already created, and I've created a cutting guide, and then I also did create a diagram. There's a truck slider element in here as well, and I'm going to have that available for everyone, I believe, in the notes, if I can figure out how to do it. I don't know, we'll figure all of that out. But my intention is to use the cutting guide as I'm making it so that I can make any changes or edits as I need to go along. Make sure I don't make any mistakes so that when it comes to y'all, it will be correct. Okay, so step one is we are going to build our album. And I have my pieces already cut here. And for the album, you are going to need one piece of 6.5 by 2 in the medium weight chipboard. You are going to need 2 pieces of the 6.5 by 6.5 in the medium weight chipboard. And then to cover them, I've got 2 pieces of 8.5 by 8.5 and 1 piece that is 5 by 8.5. And we are going to use the lay flat method for wrapping these albums that was created by Tamara with Country Craft Creations, and I will also link that video down below. But I am going to build this with you because I do a couple things differently. I'm sure it's not any better, it's just I'm quirky about it, and so I'm going to go ahead and build it with you today. All right, so I'm going to use my scoreboard as well as some spacers, and these are also available in the store. And I'm going to use this to get my papers in the correct position to wrap them. I know that a lot of designers and Tamara, they use score tape on their chipboard when they're wrapping these albums, and I don't. And the reason being is that I don't really care if glue lines show through the album covers, because I'm always covering them with pattern paper anyway. And I use a lot of layers. So it's not even just one layer of pattern paper. I usually have several layers going on there. So 1 inch around the sides, and put it down. I like to go ahead and spread that glue out all the way around them. Make sure it's down really well. And then I take a bone folder and I go from the right side, from where I've got the paper down, and I just sort of rub it up against that edge here so that I can get the paper to where it sort of knows that this is where I'm putting it. I don't know. I don't know if it helps. I think it does, so I do it. And then we just bend it over on itself, give it a really good burnishing, a good tight crease there. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so now I've got it all folded around and creased, and I'm going to cut out my corners. Okay, I've done everything the same way that Tamara does in the videos to this point, with the exception of using liquid glue. But I'm now going to use this little tool here to cut my 45-degree angles on the corners so that I can make sure that I reduce the bulk. I know a lot of people either cut the angles or cut out the squares. And I do both. I don't see it as an either or. I see it as both. A couple of the reasons why I didn't like cutting at a 45-degree angle on the squares or on the corners was because sometimes I wouldn't get the angle correctly, and this tool corrects that. So I make sure I always get the right angle. And the other reason was I don't have fingernails to push that little corner in like everyone else does. But if you cut out the squares and you go around and you cut the little angles around there, then you cut you use the angle tool, the 45-degree angle tool, to cut the corners. You get perfect corners, and you never have to squeeze that little piece in. You never have to worry if your corners are covered. It just works out perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and finish wrapping this one. And, you know, like I said, I do this a little bit differently. Instead of either or, I do both. Okay, so now as you can see, I was able to wrap the corners, and I have perfect little tight square corners without them all wonky and sticking out, and I don't have all the bulk here. So for me, it's the best of both worlds, and that's how I like to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap the rest of the pieces, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got all my pieces wrapped. I did one with the mitered corners. I did one without. I do notice a big difference in the bulk in the corners on there, but on neither one did I have to fidget with that little pinching the piece into the corners. So if you are unsure about how to line this up, you can always use your scoreboard to sort of line it up. I would love to do that with mine, and I have tried a few times. Unfortunately, my scoreboard has a weird little lip here that comes out. So if I'm doing something in this area, it lines up fine. But if I come out here and it has to hang over, it starts kind of going off on a tangent. So I've just sort of learned how to do it without that. And that's what I'm going to do right now. As you can tell, I use nothing but glue, art glitter glue, on the construction of my albums. The only exception is I have started to use score tape on the inside, and I'll show you when I get there. And that's just the piece that will cover the inside spine. But I'm going to use art glitter glue to put this together, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have finished wrapping my album front and back cover and spine. I went ahead and attached the spine to the front and back cover using the lay flat method that Tamara uses. Because I use glue to put everything together until this point, I do add some little clips on here until the glue sets. I've just found that helps me. It may not be something that other people need to do, but it has helped me. So I previously was doing this method, but I was wrapping the wings on the outside of the album because I was using glue for everything and it was the only way I could figure out how to make it stable. Using the score tape sheets, I now understand how this works on the inside. So I have changed the way I do it, and I now use the score tape sheets, and these are available at countrycraftcreations.com. And I'm going to use this on my inside spine cover that I have cut to 5 inches by a scant 6.5. Now remember, our album is 6.5 by 6.5. And I really want it to come almost all the way to the edge. So I just backed it off like a hair. I wouldn't even say 1/16 of an inch off of it, but just a little bit off of that 6.5. So I'm going to put the score tape on and attach that to the spine and on the inside right now. Okay, so now we've got our album covered and it is put together and it's looking really good. And yeah, I love the way this is coming together. That using the score tape sheets on this interior piece here, that really is the trick. So now we're going to build the spine. And I do a couple things differently on the spine, a couple things I do the same as pretty much everybody else. So let's start with the hinges. That part is the same. And for my hinges, you're going to need a piece that is 5 3/4 by 6 1/4. And you're going to put it in at the 5 3/4 side at the top. And we are going to score at 3/8. So it's going to be 3/8 on both sides on the ends, and everything else is going to be 5/8 of an inch. So I have a 5/8 of an inch hinge, and I have 5/8 of an inch gussets between the pages. And the easiest way for me to do this is just to count by 5. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's at 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's at 2. That's my first page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the gusset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my second page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Second page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gusset. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Third page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the second part of the third page, and then that leaves me with 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch left. So, and I will have all of this in the cutting guide, but you are basically going to score at 3/8 of an inch, 1, 1 5/8, 2 1/4, 2 7/8, 3 1/2, 4 1/8, 4 3/4, and 5 3/8. And I probably should have done this on the other side because I've got writing on here. I'm going to real quickly erase this. Okay, so now I've erased it and I'm going to go ahead and score and, fold and burnish all of my hinges. Okay, so now I'm ready for the glue. Okay, so we've got our hinges made and they move very nicely and they're really well worked and they're nice and straight and tight and I'm happy with them. And so I do something a little bit differently. I add a piece that allows this to sort of float out almost like a traditional book. And it gives the hinges a little bit more room to move, especially when you have a lot of bulk on your pages. This is not necessary, okay? So this piece here, this 4.5 by 6 1/4 piece that is for the gusset attachment, this is optional. If you would like to just build it the way normal people do it, I'm just not normal. You would just simply glue your hinge down like this in the middle of the spine and you'd be good to go and super happy and it's all good. But I am going to create this little gusset piece here. And so if that's something that you want to try, you can watch this part. If it's not something you want to try, then you can just fast forward past it. So for this piece here, because I've got a 2-inch spine, I'm going to score this with the 4.5-inch piece at the top. I'm going to score it at 1, and I'm going to score it at 3.5. Okay, and those are the two 1-inch pieces that are going to add up to the 2 inches on the spine. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a gusset. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4/8 of an inch on here. So I'm going to score at 1 1/8, and then I'm going to score at 1 1/4. Then over here, I'm going to score at 3 1/4 and 3 1/8. So that's sort of how my head goes on how to create the distance between them. But I'll go ahead and give you the numbers to score right now. So with the 4.5-inch side at the top, you're going to score at 1, 1 1/8, 1 1/4. Then you're going to score at 3 1/4, 3 3/8, and 3.5. Okay. And then we're going to fold these. So it's going to go mountain, valley, mountain, mountain, valley, mountain. Okay. And that's going to give us just an area for the hinges to expand away from the spine if need be. And I think it keeps my hinges from ever, really kind of pulling away from the spine too hard, because it's not fixed. So it gives it some room to move around, and I'm able to be a little bit more, I don't know that I'm necessarily rough with it, but it's like a shock absorber, I guess. Maybe that's the word. I don't know. Now these little 1/8 of an inch gussets, they can be a little tricky. You have to just sort of work them and kind of make the paper go where you want it to go. Sometimes I'll take my bone folder and just sort of go inside of that little valley just to kind of say, hey guys, this is where you're going. Okay, so it's going to look like that. You're just going to have this little accordion type element on each side. So we're going to do the other side. I'll be right back. I've got my little gusset attachment for my hinges. And what I do is I just glue the hinge directly onto that. And it looks like I've got a little bit of an overhang. Maybe I cut this a little long, I don't know, but I am going to trim just a scant little bit off of each side of these. Okay, so now we have a piece that looks like this. We have attached the spine that we make. This is the normal spine that everybody makes to this little gusseted piece here. I don't know if you can see how that looks. So these little pieces here are going to act as a gusset and allow it to lift up. And so now we're going to attach it here inside of our book. And I just do one side at a time. So I'm going to put glue on one of the wings and I'm going to push it down and spread it out. And then we'll do the other side. Okay, so now we have our spine attached and it has an element where it can pull away from the spine and give a little bit more room to the pages when they're super bulky to turn. So I know there's a lot of other ways to sort of solve that issue of the pages standing straight up. This is just the way that I do it. Somebody else may have done this. I know I've seen versions of it. This is just what I sort of settled on in making it. So let me know if you have other ways to do yours. I'd love to hear about it. So, okay, album's done. Hinges are in place. We've got this so that we've got a little bit of room here to give for the pages. And now let's go ahead and build the pages. Okay, so now we're going to work on the page construction, and the finished pages are going to measure 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So we are going to have 3 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 6 1/8, and we're going to have 3 pieces that are 6 3/4 by 6 1/4. There's no scoring on the pieces that are 6 1/4 by 6 1/8, so we're going to set those to the side. We're going to get our scoreboard, and on the pieces that are 6 3/4 by 6 1/4, we're going to place them in on the 6 3/4 inch side, and we're going to score them at 6 1/4. Or 1/2 inch from the side if you prefer. They're going to be 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 finished, so I'm just scoring them at 6 1/4 on the 6 3/4 inch side. Okay, so once those are scored, we're going to fold and burnish them. Now, if you notice, I've been using this older scoring tool for a lot of my page construction. It's just sort of worn in the way that I can use it for that. It's awful for other things, but it's so whittled down. It's just sort of my tool for how I can get in, especially on the hinges and things like that, and how I use it. But I do prefer, especially if it's on something that may see, you know, like a finished edge here, like what I'm working on, I do prefer this non-stick bone folder by Dress My Craft. It's really great. But you know how you have those tools that sort of fit your hand? They became kind of a part of you, or you just know how to use them. Maybe they're not the best, but you know how to use them. That's how this little guy is over here. Okay, so we have 3 pieces that are 6 3/4 by 6 1/4. We scored it at 6 1/4 on the 6 3/4 inch side. Can I say a quarter more than that? And so once that's been folded and burnished, the finished size is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. Then we're going to take one of the other pages that is the 6 1/4 by 6 1/8, and make sure that we've got the 6 1/4 inch side lined up at the top. You'll notice it doesn't come all the way to that fold, but that's okay. This page is going to be very well encased in here, and I just find that taking that 1/8 of an inch off gives me extra room to make sure that it's not pushed out at that fold there, at that score line. And as long as I have these corners and these 3 sides lined up, that's all that really matters. So I'm going to line those up, open up my little flap here, add some glue, and put them down. I'm going to get all 3 of these done, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we've got our pages constructed and they are together and working great. And so we're going to go ahead and add them into our album. I don't know that it really matters, but I like to put the seam side towards the back so that you don't see any of it. But honestly, it all gets covered with pattern paper, and I have forgotten before I put it on, and it's totally fine. So don't sweat it. I'm going to get these pages put on, being careful to make sure that they are lined up with each other and that I've got the same reveal top and bottom in alignment with the hinges. I'll get those on and I'll be right back. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to point out is that I put the glue close to the end of the hinge, from this perspective, the top of the hinge. And I only go about halfway down the hinge. And then to make sure that it's glued all the way to where the page attaches, once I've gone halfway down the hinge, I then add a thin bead of glue right on the edge here, like a 1/16 of an inch from the edge. And when it comes time to fold it over to make my pocket, I then also run a thin bead of glue along the bottom here. And that way I don't risk getting glue in the wrong spot, but I also make sure that I've gone all the way to the edge. Okay, so now our hinges are attached and our pages are attached to our hinges. And if you chose to do the gusseted hinge attachment like I did, then it moves around like that and still stays within the book. And yes, this is all great. One of the things that I do if I'm going to do a gusseted hinge like this though, is I always use a tie closure, because sometimes if the pages get big, they'll come out beyond that. The tie will just keep it in place. So in order to remind me not to put paper on before I've put my seam binding on, I'm going to add a little bit of double-sided tape to both of these sides so that just as a reminder that I need to put that on. And I'm going to center it on both sides and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm not sure what happened. I thought I was recording, but apparently I wasn't. I'm glad I caught it when I did though. I went ahead and added my first matting layer onto my cover, And now I'm getting ready to add the second layer, which is this glitter paper. But in an effort to conserve paper, I'm actually going to cut out the center of these pieces of glitter paper, not for the spine, but the front and back, because these are pretty large pieces of paper that could be used for other projects, as accents on other little embellishments that I make. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut those out, and then I'll fill in the middle with just some filler paper that I've got on hand. I've got some 110 pound 8.5 by 11 cardstock that I'll cut to put inside of there. And then you'll see I'll use some double-sided tape on the back to put it back together and then put it down. You won't ever see that piece. So I just feel like I don't want to waste that paper. I mean, it's not really a waste of paper, but to me, it feels like a waste of paper. So I will be doing that. You'll see that as I go forward. And then I'll finish up the rest of the matting and covering for the paper on here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have our cover on, and I am going to add some decorative elements on here. One of the things I've been working on, and I don't know, I'm still sort of trying to decide. I audition things to see if it makes sense to put them on into certain places, but I did make this little shaker card, and I was kind of thinking about attaching that here to the front. It says, "Winter weather is better together," and I thought that would be a really nice little saying for an album of us all together and winter scenes or snow or things like that. And then there was this little snow globe guy. It's so cute. It is a mason jar that was made into a snow globe. So it's like an upside down mason jar, and I thought he was really cute, and I'd like to use that there, but I've got some other elements I want to kind of bring out, and haven't quite decided what those are going to be yet. Plus, these are dimensional, and we don't want to put those on our cover yet while we're building it. So I was able to take advantage of the lay flat design that Tamara, the owner of Country Craft Creations, had created, and I built this according to that design. And I was able to take advantage of that and put all of my pieces on without, with a lot of ease, because there's no bulk in here right now. But if I were to put these on, then as I have it open, they'll get damaged and they're not going to be great. So I'm going to set them aside. And you may have noticed I had to take off the blue artisan paper that I put onto the glitter paper a couple of times. I had to do it on the spine and lifted up some corners here on the back piece. You may find, depending on the paper that you use, you may find that glitter paper or some of the mirrored finish papers or some specialty papers, you may find it just needs more art glitter glue on the paper to adhere it. Or in the case of this spine, it just needed to sort of be taken off, add more, go back on. It's almost like gluing both surfaces. Especially the glitter paper, it's porous, and sometimes the glue just doesn't quite get into all the cracks and crevices before it goes ahead and sets. So anyway, we've got that part done, and now we're going to move on to building the waterfall on the inside of the front cover. It's time to make the waterfall. So now we're going to start working on this inside front cover. And I have in the cutting guide, I'll have all of these measurements for you, but just to go over them quickly, you're going to have one piece that is going to be 4 inches by 2 inches. That's going to be your closure. You're going to have 5 that are 4 3/4 by 6 1/4, and those are going to make our waterfalls. We're also going to have some pattern paper, and this one here measures 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. and it's gonna go behind our waterfall. I have 2 magnets that are gonna be used, a piece of pattern paper, actually I need 2 pieces, I'm gonna have to cut another one of these to cover our closure piece. I have a 4x6 cut apart piece that I trimmed down to 3 7/8 by 5 7/8 for the cover for the first waterfall here. And then I've got a piece of cardstock that is 6 1/8 by 4 1/8 to kind of as a matting for that front cover there. And then we've got 5 pieces that all measure 6 1/8 by 4 1/8 that are going to cover our waterfall. As well as, you only need 5 of these, but I cut 6 in both light and dark pattern papers. And these are the pieces that are going to cover the hinge attachments for the waterfall. I cut 6 because I'm not really sure how I want to lay them out, and I know I can use them in other places if necessary. So they're here ready for that. I am going to ink my edges. I'm using 2 different inks on this. I've got kind of a brownish color. This one's actually called honey mustard that I'm going to use around the wood grain pieces. And then I've got a navy ink here that I'm going to use around the darker ones. I don't know if I'm going to ink around the lighter color papers or not. Oh, by the way, this was a mistake. So on this paper, I accidentally cut it in the wrong place. And so I just taped it back together with double-sided tape on the back. And once it gets put in place, you cannot tell. If it becomes an obvious seam, sometimes I'll use some of these like Love from Lizzie peel-off stickers here. And they're great for a lot of things, but they're really great for when you need to cover a mistake or a seam that you had to create because you had to put the paper back together, and it just slips right over there like that, and it just looks perfect. But I don't know that I'm going to need that on this one, but I might, so they're going to be out here for me in case I mess up again, because you know that happens. And like I said in another video, I sometimes end up liking those projects that I made a lot of mistakes on because I end up getting creative and using things like peel off stickers or some sort of embellishment to cover up my quote unquote little mistakes. So my little Bob Ross moments, I love them so much. So I am going to get my scoreboard out, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to score our pieces for our waterfall as well as for the closure. Okay, so you've got the 5 pieces that are 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. We're gonna put them in, and I went ahead and rounded my edges with a 1/4 inch corner rounder. You don't have to, it's totally optional. We're gonna put it in here with the 4 3/4 inch side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. And we're going to do that on all 5 of them. And then on our piece that is 4 inches by 2 inches, we're going to put it in on the 4-inch side, and we are going to score it at 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch. The 1/2 inch is our attachments. The 5/8 inch gives us a little 1/8 inch gusset to sort of be able to go over that waterfall as we add photos and paper to it, and it gets thicker. So we're going to go ahead and fold and burnish our score lines. And like I said before, these little 1/8 inch ones can get a little tricky, and you just have to sort of, I don't know, work the paper into where you want it to be, make sure that your edges stay straight. I do find that with the artisan cardstock, it's much easier to get a nice crisp line. And so you want it to kind of look, let me see if that's gonna focus here, look like this. Just got this little 1/8 inch gusset there for us. I'm gonna go ahead and fold and burnish all of these, and I will be right back. So we have folded and burnished all of our score lines, and now we're going to go ahead and put our background paper on this front inside cover. And I decided to use the wood grain. I'm going to go around and ink the edges with this kind of brownish colored, it's It's actually called honey mustard, I think is the color of the ink, but you use what you have on hand. This is just some ink that I had on hand, but whatever matches the paper choices that you had, or you don't have to do it at all. It's completely optional. I personally debate sometimes, do I want to ink the edges on the lighter colored papers or not? My rule of thumb though is that whatever the background paper is, I try to sort of match it to that if possible, or if it's a dark paper, I definitely go dark. I don't really use black though. I use a gray color most of the time. Let's see, I want my grain to go this way. It's just a little less harsh. Even on the black paper, I still go ahead and use that gray color. Scoot this over here. And you do want to make sure that you're not getting into that the fold. And so we are good all around there. Gonna give it a little push. Make sure it's all stuck down there really well. And then we're gonna start with our waterfall. And this waterfall lines up to where it's pretty close all the way to the end. One of the little tricks that I do sometimes, if I wanna make sure that my waterfall, I kind of want an idea of where I'm gonna place my waterfall, is I'll use this repositionable tape, and I'll go ahead and on the back side, I will line up all the pieces for my waterfall. And this is optional. You do not have to do this. It just helps me, gives me a visual on about where I need to space it out. You can do it with a ruler. I'm just more visual, so I don't know. You know, this whole video is just how I do things. It's not the right way. It's not the only way. It's just how I do things. And if you have other ways that you do things or things that have worked well for you on anything that you've seen in this video, please comment for me in the comments below, because somebody is going to find that helpful. Probably me, but somebody is going to find that helpful. So this is what I do. This is just, like I said, it's completely optional, but I put them together so I can kind of get a visual on spacing on where I want it. Oh, and I just realized I made a mistake. I should have attached this first. So we're going to see if I can lift up this paper. Yep. So I make a lot of mistakes. I don't know if I can get it up all the way. We're certainly going to try. Oh goodness. I guess it wouldn't be me crafting if I didn't make mistakes. Well, so I'm just going to very carefully try not to rip this paper, but very carefully try to lift it up if possible. I'm going to use the rounded side here so that I don't, try not to poke it with the tip anyway. Yep, there we go. We're getting it up. Okay, I think we might have salvaged it. Before you put down the pattern paper, try to center this. And so it's going to be 3 1/4 and 3 1/4. This is a 6 1/2 inch piece, and that gives me my center. This piece here is 2 inches, so I'm going to come over to the 1 inch side on either one, and well, you wouldn't be slipping it in, but for me, I'm slipping it into place. Make sure I've got it open enough. Open this side just a little bit more. Now, it's suspenseful if nothing else. Okay. Yep, that'll work. Okay, so I'm gonna put some glue on both sides. I'm gonna slip some glue inside of here first, I think. And then just a little bit of glue. I think I keep going out of the camera frame, don't I? A little bit of glue on both sides here. You won't have to do this because you will know. Don't do what Caroline just did. Yep. Okay. Slide it over just a hair. There we go. I just know all of you seasoned crafters out there were yelling at me as I put the paper down. Don't worry, I'll be making more mistakes, I'm sure. But hey, you know, this is how this is life, you know? This is just life. And it's all a fun experience, no matter what it is. Well, maybe it's not all fun, but you know, my grandmother always said, the good Lord blesses us in ways that don't necessarily feel like blessings at the time. And boy, are those some true words. Okay, while I'm working on this, I'm gonna hold off on the waterfall. I got a little ahead of myself. I'm gonna go ahead and address this little flap here while I can. So I cut my pattern paper piece to 3 3/4 by 1 7/8. And I did that because I knew I wanted to trim it down. And this is optional. You can simply just cut that piece to 3 1/4 and 1 7/8, and it will fit on here just nicely. I went ahead and cut it a little bit longer. Let me double check that. Yep. I cut it a little longer because I'm going to add a little tiny little piece here on that gusset that we made. And that's optional. You don't have to do it. It's a little fidgety, but how I do that is I go ahead and push it down to that first fold line here, right? The one that we glued down. And I lay the pattern paper on here that I'm going to use to cover it with. I'm going to grab a pencil and I'm just going to mark it. I'm just going to mark a little line, a little tick mark here where I need to cut the paper for this top piece. And then I scoot it down just a tiny hair onto the other side of that fold line. And I'm going to mark a second little tick mark there. And that's going to be the width of what I cut to cover this little piece here. And we're going to take our trimmer and I'm going to cut the bottom line here. There we go. And then I'm going to cut the top line. And this little bitty, tiny little baby is what we're going to put over that piece of paper. Like I said, it's not necessary. It's super fussy. But this way, since I cut it from the same paper, it's going to look like the pattern lines up. The pattern's going to follow through here. So I've got my little piece from my hat and a little piece from the glove that are going to line up here. And so it'll look like a complete pattern. I know, super fussy, right? I do think I want to ink these edges, and I think I'm going to go with the brown since it's on the craft cardstock. And that seems to be looking okay. You can use like the antique, you know, dyes and or antique inks and stuff like that, and they look really nice too. Again, this is just what I have on hand. It's not the right way. It's just what I'm doing today. And I might do something different another day. So this piece here is going to attach on the underneath side of that top one because I want to be able to see the whole element. You know, and you could go over the front and it's totally fine, but I'm going to do it on the underneath side. So I need to put my magnet on this top piece before I cover it with the pattern paper. And I'm just going to come down about 1/4 of an inch or so, and I'm going to center it in here and put some tape over it, and then we'll cover it with our paper. At least this one I won't have to take apart, right? Well, I shouldn't say that yet, but hopefully I won't have to take it apart. Everyone has so many nice tips and tricks, and I use some of them to remember to put these things down, but I still forget. People just, you know, it happens. Yeah, I'm really bad about putting my pin back in my glue. I saw that some people have different ways of doing it. Some people put them in different bottles. Probably need to look into that, but this is weird, but I think one of the things that keeps mine from getting too clogged up sometimes is that I rub my tip into the glue so much that I get this sort of wad of glue at the top of my glue applicator. And so when it does dry up, it's just that little top part and I can pull it off. So it's not really drying up inside of the tip so much. And that's probably not recommended because maybe it's wasteful or messy, but I don't know, it's maybe a little added perk to the way I do it. All right, put this little tiny piece down here. And I'm gonna burnish him down really good because there's gonna be a lot of motion and movement around here, and I don't want that piece to come up. So there we have it. We have covered, let's see, I hope you can see that. We've covered this with this little strip here and our front piece on our pattern paper. I think it just gives it a nice little finished edge. So now we're gonna move on to the waterfall. I got ahead of myself. And we're just gonna kind of lay this out here and space it, just more for me to have a visual. So I know about how much of a reveal I need to have at the top and how much, how far over I need to have it in the middle. And I think that's a pretty good alignment there. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first one. I'm gonna put some glue on the back. I'm sure you've all made waterfalls. And I'm gonna get these pieces put down and I'll be right back. I have my waterfall pieces attached to my page and I think they look pretty good. They're all lined up really well. Make sure that glue's down. It's all looking pretty good. And so now what we want to do is we want to put the magnet on before I forget. And I'm going to simply allow the magnet to find where it needs to go on the one I've already attached. I'm going to take a piece of double-sided tape. And if you're using the gray magnets, they already have adhesive on them, which is really nice. And then I'm going to close it down. I'm just going to just give it a little rub. One thing to keep in mind is I made sure that my gusset is standing straight up. It's not leaning forward. So I've got all the room that I need to hold it into place. And now my magnet is attached. So I do like to go around and sort of seal it. I don't know that it's necessary, but it's what I do. Let's go ahead and make the front piece here. We're gonna layer this up. And it's gonna go on the top of our, right up here. Oh, I forgot. I think I had rounded the corners on the other one. It's okay, it looks fine. But you can round those upper corners if you like. It's just, I just didn't. So on this one, we're gonna go ahead and ink these edges, glue it down, and that's basically what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ink the edges and glue them onto the waterfall, and I'll be right back. I've got my waterfall installed and it is all covered and it's done. I think it looks really cute. And we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next page. So now we're moving on to page 1. And if you remember, this is the page that in the Valentine version of this album, I had the little interactive heart openings. And there's nothing else on this page. There's no flips or flaps of any kind. The page doesn't, you know, do somersaults. It just opens up these little hearts. And I think that that's enough for it. It's to stand alone. Plus, with the gusset that I built in here, there's plenty of room to add pictures, but I wouldn't want to add anything else too bulky on this page. So for the winter version of this, I decided that we should do some snowflakes. So I'm going to do the same little flips on that, but I'm going to do it with a snowflake die that I had instead of the heart dies. And so they're going to open up like this. And this is part of a die set that was an add-on for the Lawn Fawn Magic Iris Snow Globe, which, you guys, this is a really fun die to play with. You open and close this little shutter on it, and there's all sorts of little add-ons. But it just happened to be the one that was the right size for this, is what I thought. And then I found another stitched, oops, turned off my light. I found another stitched circle die that I had that fits right in there. And so I'm going to use that to find some sort of decorative element to put in the middle of this snowflake. And that's where this 6x6 pad comes into play. Because remember I said that the papers in here are scaled to a smaller scale. And sometimes it's just nice to have those options. So I'm looking through and trying to find what I can put this circle around and still sort of capture the image that I would like to capture. That snowflake kisses is really cute, but I think it's a little bit too big for that. Maybe the mug, I might be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around here, I'm going to sort of audition these little images and see which one might work for the interior portion of my snowflake. And then I'm going to cut them out. If I cut some of them out and I find when I put them on that they don't look as good as I thought they were going to, it's okay. I can still use these elements in making my cards. Remember, I told you that I like to make cards with my scraps. So I will still have a use for all of these little dies, these little cutouts that I do with the die cutting machine. But I'm going to go ahead and try to find some here. I'm going to cut out my snowflakes using the glitter paper that I cut out from the covers. Remember, I cut those squares out here to sort of conserve paper. Well, this is a perfect use for it. So I'm going to cut out my snowflakes. I'm going to try to find some little elements that I want to cut out here, and then I'm going to come back and we'll put it all together. So I cut out my snowflakes, and I cut out a little assortment of just some images that I harvested from the 6x6 paper pad. And then I glued them down to the blue artisan cardstock, and I ran them through my scan and cut so that I could get a matting to the snowflake, if you can see that. And now I'm going to put them together. And the first thing I need to do is I need to make my little bases for the cards. And they are going to be 4 inches by 8 inches. We're going to score them down the middle on the 8-inch side and fold them over and just make a simple card base for these snowflake cutouts that we've made. And so we're going to fold and burnish that, and then we're going to attach the snowflakes to the cards and cut out around them to sort of get our shape. I'm not going to do this in the scan and cut. I'm just going to, freehand this. But I will say this. So on this book, I had one of them opening to the left and one of them opening to the right. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. So on one of them, I need the fold side to be on the left. And on another one, I need the fold side to be on the right. It doesn't matter as much on lining these up because they're snowflakes and there's no, direction to them. On the hearts, it did matter. I didn't want my hearts to be upside down. So I am going to glue these down, and I'm going to cut out around them, leaving a portion of the fold intact so that we'll have a working card, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have now cut out both of my shapes here, and I need to have some sort of paper to go on the inside. Now, when I made the hearts, the background was black, and so I really needed the paper inside because if I wanted to write or anything in there, I needed it to show up. On the craft cardstock, I don't necessarily need it to be white so that you can write in there, but I do need something to at least cover where I'm going to put my magnet and how I'm going to do the mechanisms for this. So I think the easiest thing for me to do is going to be to use the file that I created when I scanned this image into my scan and cut that out. Now, if you don't have a scan and cut, or you don't have some die cuts that you want to use, it is perfectly fine to do this as a square. You could do this as a circle. You could do it with something that you do have. Modify it and make it your own. I'm not, you know, I don't, there's not a right or wrong way to do this. There's just your way. And I'm showing you my way to give some inspiration, you know, have you maybe think, oh, I never thought to do that before, because I know I find that helpful. I watch a lot of other people's creative endeavors, and I come up with really great ideas in doing so. So I'm gonna get those cut. I'm gonna put them in here in just a minute when I add the magnet. Okay, so I used my snowflake die to cut out the glitter paper, and then I went through the scan and cut to create a background for it and cut those out in the scan and cut. And then using the same, the same scan that I had used for that, I cut out 4 of these pieces that are identical to the one that was basically created as the background for the snowflake out of the light blue, that baby blue artisan cardstock. And I'm gonna use that to line the insides of my little card element here so that I have some contrast of color and also so I have some way to encase the magnet and the ribbon that's going to help us pull it open. Now, I did a tutorial on how I make these for the Valentine version one with the hearts, and I'm going to link that one below. And so for now, I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward and put these together. So I completed my little card elements. I've got the magnets on there. I did put the seam binding on the tutorial that I've linked below. There's ribbon. I use the seam binding. I like it because it's thin, and I was able to actually kind of create a little decorative element. I folded the lighter color in half and ran it on top of the darker color, and so it created just like a little bit of a two-tone effect. I don't know, it's probably a little fidgety, but I like it. So these are gonna sit on here like this on our page, and get it back on the page the right way. There we go. And I am still trying to figure out which one of these circles that I cut out I want to use. Again, whatever ones I don't use, I'll end up using on card elements or maybe somewhere else in the album, so that's just fine. But I want to kind of try some of these out and see which ones I like. That's not too bad. I kind of like that. We've also got the, ooh, that's cute. Then the comfy cozy are we. I don't know, I kind of like the greens on there because I feel like it helps pop it out. But that snowman is so cute. I don't think I could really make a wrong decision here. That one, Snowflake Kisses. I feel like it gets lost. It's a little bit too light. So I think I'm gonna go with the greens. Maybe that warm and cozy. Let me see. Yep, we're gonna go with the greens. I like that contrast. So I'm gonna attach these on here. I'm gonna ink my paper and attach it to the page, glue these down, do a little bit of decorating. I've cut out some extra snowflakes, and I've got some like little bling here that I can put on, and I'll be right back. finished decorating my page here, and we've got our little flaps open, and this one is done. So now we're going to move on to page 2. And page 2 and 3 are kind of a companion page. They're mirror image, or bookend pages, however you want to put it. And so we're going to work on the construction of these next. Pages 2 and 3 are mirrored images, and they sort of expand out, open out like this. So the pieces that we're going to need for the construction on these pages are 2 pieces that are 3 3/4 by 4 1/4, and 2 pieces that are 5 3/4 by 5 1/4. And we're going to get our scoreboard out here. And on the 3 3/4 by 4 1/4 inch pieces, we're going to put them in with the 3 3/4 inch side at the top, and we're going to score it at 3 1/4 on both pieces. And then on the 5 3/4 by 4 1/4 piece, we're going to put it in on the 5 3/4 inch side, so the longer side, and we're going to score it at 5 1/4. So the finished size for both of these, once they've been folded and burnished, is going to be 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 and 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I hope everyone is enjoying the season. This paper is, winter themed, and I know for some people they don't like the cold, and other people they do, or they like the snow or don't like the snow. And I could probably find reasons for liking and not liking just about everything, but I think that it's really just about perception, isn't it? So how we perceive things, that's our reality. So I'm just sort of this mindset right now where I'm trying to make my reality as positive as possible. And that's kind of fun, right? It's kind of fun to feel like you've got some say in how things, work in your life. These are going to attach like this. We're going to have this, the smaller one, the 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, is going to flip out off of the opposite end of the 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. And the larger piece is going to attach here to the side and create this little flip out. So we're going to go ahead and put these together. Actually, I'm going to round my corners, because I do like to do that. So on the 2 sides opposite of the fold for all 4 pieces, go ahead and take a 1/4 inch corner rounder to that. Or you can leave them square if you like. I like the finished look of it, and then also it just keeps the corners from getting too beat up, as the book is being used, as the album's being used. Okay. So now we've got our pieces on here like this. I think what I'm actually going to do is construct each of these separately, so I can put my pattern paper on here more easily on the table. Now, I will say that with constructing the book like this, as you can see, that the hinges will lift up. So whereas if it were fixed, my book would have already been sort of standing at attention there. But because I've got that space in there, when you open them, they kind of they have room to move where they need to go. So let's get our ruler out here, and we want to center these, the attachment of the 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 pieces on here. And so these pieces are 5 1/4 square. Half of that come in here, 2 5/8. There we go. And so, yeah, I was just saying that I think I'm trying to just sort of change my attitude a little bit, have an attitude of gratitude, right? And it is, it's listen, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we fall into those negative mindsets, right? And for me, it's been an exercise in trying to speak kindly to myself. I am my own worst critic. And I found myself saying things in my internal dialogue, to myself that I wouldn't have dare even said to my worst enemy. And it was really a wake-up call for me to realize that, you know, being nice to yourself is probably a good idea. It's been really nice. It's been nice to sort of learn to care for yourself in that way and to speak kind words to yourself, because, you know, I kind of believe that what we focus on grows, and I'm just trying to speak some kindness, at least into my own mind. And you know what? If it's all sort of crazy and it doesn't really make a difference at all, I figure if you have to assume, you might as well assume the best. What can it hurt, right? Okay, so we've got these attached on here. We've got these constructed, and they are going to go on the page like this and open up in a mirror image. And I'm going to go ahead and put some pattern paper on the parts that I can before I put them into the album. I am going to go ahead and attach the magnets to the flaps. And these are gonna, when they close down, they're gonna close somewhere right in here. And so I'm gonna put the magnet about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch in from the edge, somewhere near the center-ish. I'm not really gonna get too picky about centering these up. Yeah, I'm not gonna get picky. Somewhere around there is good enough. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little ribbon pull on these. So similar to the way I've done all of the other ones, I fold up my ribbon in half. I put some tape on it just shy of 1/2 inch from the reveal or from the fold, so that I can insert it wherever it needs to be between the pattern paper. So this one here is, I am gonna try to center this up. I'm trying to be less perfectionist-y, but it's in me, so it's who I am. I'm gonna put a little dab of glue here, about right at the center, and we're gonna line this up so we've got about 1/4 inch reveal, and leave that there. And then the inside pattern paper that I have for that is this one. So I'm gonna ink my edges. We have got our pattern paper on our little fold outs here, and we're going to attach them to the book before we put the paper on the base. And then we're also going to attach the corresponding magnet to that. So let's go ahead and get these glued down. I'm going to center them into place here, and I probably am just going to eyeball these because they're only 1 inch smaller than the actual page height. So it's kind of easy for me to eyeball 1/2 inch from each edge, I figure. Put that down there. And I am going to add a couple clips here while that sets, just so that it gets a really nice tight hold. Again, probably not necessary, probably just something I do for whatever reason, but I'm going to add them. So I'm going to let that set. Let's get the glue on the other side, and they don't have to sit there long. It just adds a little bit of pressure while the art glitter glue has a chance to bond the fibers of the paper to each other. Almost impossible to get up once it's down, but I just want to make sure it's got a really nice tight hold to start with. Okay, Let's see. Yep, I think we're good. Give it a little burnishing, and then that's literally how long I keep them on. Not very long at all, just long enough to get to the next one and put them on. It's really more closer to the edges that I worry about. Sometimes when you use liquid adhesive, the fibers of the paper will start to absorb it and they start to curl up. And so I just don't want it to curl away from that side over there. So because we're going through so many layers of paper to catch a magnet on this one, I'm going to use larger magnets, not on both sides. Obviously you saw that I just used the smaller, I think they're 10 millimeter by 1 millimeter magnets that I used on the backs here. But on the base here, I'm going to use a larger magnet. So I have these that are, I think, 2 millimeter by 10s. And they are, oops, forgot I had those on. They are a heavier magnet. And that way it's going to catch a little bit better on that page. So I just put them on here so that it will find itself, find the right side that it needs to be on to catch. I'm going to put the tape underneath it with the sticky side facing up. And then we'll just close our pages. There we go. So I'm gonna get this one down. And they are a little bit bulkier, but because they're going on the flat part of this page, it's not really gonna be noticeable. And this is usually where I'm gonna put large pictures anyway. And then I've also got a 1/2 inch strip here. The beauty of having a 5/8 inch gusset, well, for several reasons, but one of the beauties is that it's really easy to cut a 1/2 inch strip to put in there to line the gusset. Now we've got the pages 2 and 3 are completed. The fold outs are in place and everything is looking good. Now we're going to move on to a really fun little interactive element on page 4. And that is this little slider element for the truck. And so he slides out and he slides back in, and then this opens up in a gatefold here. So we're going to start with making this slider element first. This is going to be really fun. So on page 4, we have this truck slider element that is going to be the same as the element in this album where the truck is pulled away and leaving a sentiment in there. Well, the reason I picked this collection is because it has a very similar cut apart that we can cut out. So we're going to be able to trim down this winter fun portion and put underneath this cutout window, and we're going to be able to cut around the truck and use that kind of fussy cut around the truck and use that as our element here on the front. So in the cutting guide, I included a diagram. You're going to need one piece that is 6 inches by 6.5. We're going to score it at 1/2 inch, and then again at 3.5 inches on the 6.5 side. And then we're going to score it at 1/2 inch on either side on the 6 inch side. And these shaded areas are where you're going to cut out. And we're going to basically create like a little envelope pocket fold, and I'll show you how to cut out the window as well. And then the mechanism that makes it work is a little slider piece, and that's going to start with a 5 inch by 3 inch piece of paper, and we're going to cut out again the gray part here, and we're going to get started on that. The first thing that we need to do though is we need to fussy cut around our truck and cut out the strip here for the sentiment or whatever the words are on the bottom here. I tried to do this on my scan and cut for the last truck, and it just wouldn't register. There's too many lines coming around here, and it wanted to cut all of these other things. So I'm going to old school fussy cut this one out and get my papers ready, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to take this pen here. It is a Tombow Futunesco brush pen, and I just love these pens. I love writing with them, but for right now, I'm using it. Oh, I did just smear it a little bit. I'm using it on the back side. I'm coming in from the back side so that I can ink the edges in these, especially in these little corners like this. It's really hard to get in there like that. And some of them, if I've cut it and it sort of tore the paper a little bit, so it's revealing the white core, I'll even go over it with that a little bit, and it gives it some definition. But it also covers up a lot of, you know, maybe just wobbly cuts. Like I said, little tears in the paper. It's just I have found that this is a great way to do this. And if you guys have another way that you do things like this, let me know, because I love learning what everyone else is doing as well. It helps give me ideas, and a lot of times I think, oh, I never thought of that. Okay, so we've got this one cut out, and what I did was I cut all of the elements out separately. Oops, I think I might have thrown one of them away. Just a second. Well, I couldn't find the piece that I just threw away. I don't know how that happens, but it does. So I did have another cut apart. I cut the piece out again. If you notice, when I cut apart complex pictures like this, or when I want to cut out complex pictures like this, I cut out each individual element, and then I can always rebuild it. You know, I can always add this to it, and I can always then add this piece to it, and it just seems so much easier for me. I don't know if that's how other people do it, but it's certainly how I do it, and it works for me this way. So I am going to kind of build this unit here. I'm going to add a little bit of pattern paper in the window because I did cut it out, and I did choose to use this print, and I chose to use it from the 6x6 collection because, again, it's a smaller scale size print. I just felt like it looked better having this small snowflake. So I'm going to kind of work on putting these together, and I will be right back. Building up all of those layers on the back, I didn't want anything to catch when we're doing the slide mechanism, so I did back it on some 110-pound white cardstock, just some really heavy cardstock, and I put it through my scan and cut, and look, it cut it out perfectly. And I think that the issue is that when you have those patterns that have the lines in the background, the scan and cut can't differentiate between the lines of the defined pattern and the background lines, and it tries to just go all over the place. So by cutting them out individually and then putting them on a piece of paper, I was able to not only have it scan appropriately and cut it out. Of course, I think the outlining it with the black with the Tombow marker or the pen actually helped also, but I was able to add a little border around it. So hopefully this will work out. I do not really like the fact that I've got pattern paper in the window and it's kind of white in there. I don't know. We'll see what I do. I might end up trying to fussy cut a little piece in there so it looks a little bit more realistic. For the construction of the slider, on the diagram, I actually wrote this incorrectly. It's supposed to be 5.5 inches by 3 inches, and so I will correct that for you in the one I linked below. So the 3-inch by 5.5-inch piece is the piece that we're going to cut into this shape to create the pull mechanism for the slider. And that one doesn't have any scoring. This piece here is the envelope, so to speak, or the encasement for the slider mechanism, and that is 6.5 by 6 inches. We are going to be scoring that. And then we have two pieces that are 3 9/16 by 6 1/4, and those are going to be our gatefold pieces. Now, I know when people hear 1/16 of an inch, they get a little nervous, but if you look at it this way, it's halfway between 3.5 and 3 5/8. That's 3 9/16. So when you're cutting it, just scooch it a little bit past the 3.5 mark, you've got it. You'll be good to go. So, and on these two, we're going to score at 1/2 an inch on the 3 9/16 inch side on each of them. Okay, and we're going to set those aside because we're not ready for those yet. And on this one, it is 6 inches by 6.5 inches. And if we look at our diagram over here, on the 6.5 inch side is we're going to make two different, two scores. We're going to score once at 1/2 inch and once at 3.5 inches. Okay, and then we're going to turn it. And on the 6 inch side, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch on either end. So we're going to score 1/2 inch and 5.5 inches. And that is all of the scoring that we need for this page. So we're going to fold and burnish all of our score marks. And then we're going to do a little bit of trimming on this one. And it's basically just making a little envelope that's going to hold the mechanism and kind of slide in and out of. Okay, so now we have a piece that looks like this, and we are going to miter our corners here. We're going to miter in here, and we're going to cut this piece completely out. And so if you look at the diagram, all of the gray areas are what we're going to cut out here. So now you should have a piece that looks like this, and these are going to fold in, and this is going to come down, and this is going to be our piece that holds our slider mechanism. But as you can see, we need a place for the slider to exit. That is one that I didn't mark on the diagram, and I will show you how to do that here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to leave it. We're going to wait till we actually build the mechanism, and then we're going to mark where that needs to be cut. Okay. But right now what I'm checking for is just to make sure that it covers everything, that I don't have any major pieces standing out. I do have a little warble here from my score where I cut like inside of my score line, or outside of my score line instead of inside of it. Okay. And so now what we're going to do is we need to figure out how to open up this window. How big does this window need to be? And how I'm going to make that determination is I'm going to look at my words. I have cut this piece down as much as I could. The wheels of the truck were sitting pretty much just right above this when I cut it. And so this is what I have left, and I want to be able to center it here on my my card, so to speak, I guess. And I'm going to kind of just see where does that put me? You know what? Because if you do this for a different collection, it might be spaced a little differently. So I don't want to give you like an actual number measurement because it could change. The actual words on here take up a total of just over 3/4 of an inch of space. So I have determined that I need a 1 inch tall cutout, and the width that I need for my cutout is going to be 4 inches. So that's going to give me 1/2 inch on each side and 1 inch top and bottom that I need to keep, and then the rest I'm going to cut out. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to mark at 1 inch from the bottom, 1 inch there, and then I'm going to do 1/2 inch on the left and right sides. And that's going to show me the window that I need to cut out for the message that we're going to reveal when we pull that out. I do use my metal ruler when I'm cutting along because I don't want to slice into my plastic ruler, and I've done that. I don't know why, it just sort of feels, it's like almost like fingernails on a chalkboard for me. I nick that plastic with my blade, and it just makes me cringe. But I'm just gonna line it up. I hold my blade up against the metal ruler and slide it down just to that point. And over here, do the same thing. go. So I've got my cutout here. Didn't quite get that corner, did I? Let's not tear it. Okay, so I've got my little window cut out here. I might need to clean it up some. Looks like I've got just a little sliver of paper here. There you go. And that is going to reveal the words that I've got here. So in order to center this on here correctly so that I can see it exactly the way that I want it to, I'm going to use my repositionable tape again. So I'm going to kind of line it up here. Let's see. I think that's pretty good. That looks pretty good. And I am going to take my repositionable tape and I'm just going to put it over the window so that I can catch that bottom piece there, okay? And then it's going to stay exactly where I need it to be. Then I'm going to add my adhesive on here and close it up so that it's going to catch in exactly the right position for me. So now when I open it up, it's going to be exactly where I want it to be inside of that window. And it looks like I might have been a little bit long on here, so I'm just going to bend this back the other way and trim off this little bit so that it doesn't catch in here when this folds up. That's good. Same thing over here. I just have a little sliver. Okay. All right. So that should be in the right position. Let's double check, make sure. Oh, kind of made a mess here, huh? And then I just realized, you know, I wrote all over this page right in the middle, right where it's going to show. So I'm going to give it a quick erase. I love these erasers. This Pentel Click Eraser, oh my gosh, they work so well. Okay, so now that looks like it's lined up pretty well for me. And we need to cut out a hole for the paper that's going to go over this as well. So I'm gonna do the same thing, the same type of thing. But this time I'm gonna center my paper exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to use my tape and hold it exactly where I want it to be. Kind of do that. I should hold it. Turn it over. And this time I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to go around the inside lines. Okay. I'll go ahead and take that off. And I'm going to take my ruler, and this time instead of lining it up on the line, I'm going to just scooch back a hair, like, I don't know, like a 1/16 of an inch back all around. And that's going to give me that kind of 1/8 of an inch, you know, I guess reveal for the matting. So we're going to treat this almost like this is the piece that goes over and the underneath piece is the matting here. I don't know. It's just going to give me another little layer to it. So again, I'm not going all the way to the line. I'm coming just shy of that line. And that one a little bit crooked, but it'll be okay. I mean, people are going to be interested in the mechanism more than they are about if I was, you know, a 32nd of an inch off. Okay, and I'm a little short here, so let's give it a little clip. I think we can just pull that one out. Okay, so there we go. And sometimes when you use your razor blade and you cut things out, it'll leave kind of a little, I don't know, a raised edge on the back side. So I like to just go over it with my bone folder and sort of work the fibers back down on the paper. And I think this looks really good. So we're gonna hold it up to our cardigan. And yep, I have a little bit of a reveal there where I can see some of the, where you can see, let's get some white paper behind it, where you can still see some of the craft cardstock behind there. And I think it looks good. So I'm very happy with it. I'm going to ink my edges on this one, and I'm going to do the outside with like a slate colored ink, just kind of running it around there. Just, I think it gives it a little bit of definition, because we have two kind of similar values of color. They're both kind of like a medium value of color on this, and that way it kind of helps it pop out. And then I'm going to take my Tombow, and if you go from the back side when you're kind of running around things, then if you slip, you're going to slip and mark up the back side, not slipping and marking up the front side of it. So at least that's what works for me. So I'm going to come on around all of these, get them nicely uniform. Or is uniform, see, like I just slipped and drew on the back side, and that's okay because it's the back side. Okay, so now that's going to give me an opening just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down this front piece here while we've got it kind of flat. There's no bulk to it. It'll be easy to smooth it out and get it to adhere. So I saw a picture of this. It was kind of like a pictorial series on a Pinterest search for sliding card. And I thought, oh, that would be really fun to use, you know, some cut apart elements with. And then I just sort of made it. There we go. I think it turned out pretty cute. The one I did on the Valentine version of this album is the first one I had made. The pictorial showed a different way of attaching it, but because this was so long, I ended up doing another little element that I'll show you. Okay, so that part is done. We've got the inside here. When it closes up, we have the words that we want to see. Now we need to make the actual slider pull mechanism. And so this one here needs to be able to pull out and still have something covering up, you know, this window here. So what I'm going to do, and I cut it at 3 inches by 5.5, but it because of the folds, because of the scoring in there, I need to trim it down just a hair, but I wanted to kind of put it in first to see. And now I can see that how much I need to trim it down. I'm going to actually kind of back it out here some and mark just to the inside of that score line, of that fold line. And that's going to tell me exactly where it needs to be to nestle in there. So we're going to cut that down. And again, I would probably say it's a 1/16 of an inch. I know people don't really like working with 1/16, but I don't mind. I kind of like it when things fit. And that's how you get things to fit. So now if I fold these up, it's going to fit in there without too much pucker. I think I need just a tiny bit more because I don't want it to pucker. I want it to be able to pull easily, but it also doesn't need to be loose. I want it to fit in there so that it doesn't wiggle around too much inside of there either. Okay, I think that is just right. Okay, so when I fold them up, it's in there flat. It's not moving around. Okay, so now what we need to do is I am going to put it in here just as it's going to be. I'm going to fold up all the pieces, close it up, and I'm going to use my window again and mark around the inside. And the reason I do this as a template on everything is that there's no way you can sort of not cut it correctly then, because you're all basing it off the same template. So I need to cut my lines. Let me get my other ruler here. So this back piece, it needs to be at least this wide on the back piece. That's going to be this little piece right here, okay? And because I don't want it to, I want it to be able to go in all the way. So on that line, I'm going to keep it the same. I'm going to line it up right there. And we know that that is 1/2 inch. And I'm going to draw a line this way, okay? But on this pull piece, I want it to be wider than the opening because I don't want it to come out of the opening. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add 1/4 inch on either side of this line here that I've got, okay? So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to line this up with the 1/4 inch mark. I can see it underneath there, and I'm going to draw a line, turn it around, and do the same thing. Line this up with the 1/4 inch mark. Oops, I labeled it. Okay, so this is what I need to cut out. So the first part that I need to cut out is going to be like this, and I'm not even going to use my ruler for this because these are pretty small, and I'm going to end up rounding them anyway. So I'm just going to go on the lines here. Yeah, I probably should. I'll use my ruler for this one. Cut it straight down here. Let's see, do we get it? Yeah, we got it. And turn it around. And just cut straight down. Okay. So this is going to be the mechanism that's going to pull in and out. And the paper that covers this needs to match the same as the front because that's part of the reveal, right? So it's going to go in here and it's going to pull like this and reveal the words that we've got inside. So for this one, I've got a piece of pattern paper and I'm just going to put glue on this part and glue it down. It doesn't matter that it doesn't go all the way to the sides. This was a scrap that I had because those aren't ever going to be seen. Those are going to be fully encased inside of there. In fact, before I do that, let's go ahead and give it a little bit of shape. I don't want it to get caught on these corners. So I'm just going to freehand kind of round those corners there so that when they're moving inside of the mechanism, they don't get caught on, you know, anything. That square edge isn't going to grab anything. Okay. And then on the front part of the pull, on this one, I used the small envelope punch to make that shape, but you can freehand cut whatever you want. In fact, we could just cut, you know, with the corner rounder, but I went ahead and used the small envelope punch. This is 1.5 inches. So I just came over here to the 1.5 inch mark so I could get it right on the very edge. And then I'm going to flip it over and go again to the 1.5 inch mark so I can get right on the very edge. And that's what we're going to have for our pull shape. So now that we've got that cut out, it did leave a little thing here. I'm going to just kind of round that over. Maybe. I didn't get it positioned as well as I should have. That's okay. All right. So now I'm just going to put glue on this and stick it down onto here, and then we'll cut out around it. And that way it'll cover it just perfectly. Okay, and then I'm just going to use my my finger blade here because I like it, and I'm going to come along the edges. I do this a lot, and while I can veer off sometimes, for the most part, I usually get a pretty straight cut. If I have something I need to kind of fix or clean up, I can always go back over with my scissors afterwards, but this seems to be an easy way for me to do it. At least in removing kind of large chunks of it first, and then I can kind of come back in and just shape it a little bit with my scissors. I'm really not happy with the way I cut these little notches, but I'm not gonna worry about it. It's, you know, it's not that big a deal. We're trying to get the mechanism to work and for it to be, you know, pretty, and all of those things are happening. And so it's going to be okay. All right, so now we've got our little pull mechanism in place. And it's going to go in here just like this and reveal our little winter fun window. Just really kind of fun. So now what we need to do is, when holding the mechanism in here and closing it all up and pushing all the way to the end, now I've got this flap that's open. I'm going to make a couple marks here on where my mechanism is so that I know where to cut for this opening here. So I'm going to create 2 tabs that are going to fold in and adhere to the front, but I need part of this to be gone so that I can pull the tab in and out. So, you know, we actually have a movement. And I made the little marks, and then I'm going to cut just to the outside of those marks to give me just a little bit of extra room, but I don't want too much room because I don't want it to, you know, be all willy-nilly wiggling about here. So I'm going to fold these in place. We're getting ready to put it all together, I promise. And like I said, I just sort of came up with some way to do this from looking at the pictures. If you guys know another way, or if you've made them, please, you know, let me know in the comments. Link a video or something for me if there's something else I should be looking at on how to do this. And so then this piece is going to go in here, okay? And all of these little tabs are going to fold down, and they're going to glue together like this. And when it's all in place, then this is going to pull in and out just like that. Isn't that fun? I love it. Now, on the little pictorial thing that I saw when I first saw this done, I want to say it was a train or something, and they just glued the train right here, and it just moved, you know, freely with it. The truck, I felt like, was going to get caught on, you know, on something when it did that. So I came up with it's just a really simple thing. It's just a strip of paper, right? So for example, on this one, here's this little strip of paper that I put on, and I just folded it back and attached it here and glued it. I did wrap it around the back side and glue it there. So we're going to do the same thing. And on one side, I'm just going to just kind of eyeball fold it back. About like that. I'm just making it up as I go here. And I'm going to glue it down on the underneath side of this pull mechanism here. Okay. So actually, I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down while I do it. I think it would be easier. And I don't want it to catch on that, so I'm going to put this side down first. Yeah. All right. So put this guy back in here and put some glue on these tabs and flaps here. And we're going to close up what is essentially our card. See, I use just a lot of card element ideas on my album pages. Okay. And then this is going to close up making sure we're not catching this in any of the glue. Get it to stick down. I've got a real mess here. I think I'm gonna have to stop when I'm done with this part and clean up before I move on. Okay, and so now this is gonna pull out and pull in. You have to make sure it can get underneath this flap. Once it kind of works a little bit, it will. There we go. Now it's working. Well, it's working just fine. There we go. Okay, so I want to take this little strip here and I want to glue it. I want to put a little bit of glue on the back side of this fold. Just a little bit because I don't want it to run out on everything. And I'm going to kind of center it up here. And that looks pretty good. I'm just going to give it a little push. I think on this one yep, I ran a little bit, just a tiny bead right there. Because I want it to be free to lift up. Because it's got to lift up over this, the frame here. So when I pull it, here it needs to get a little bit more. I only want it to be attached right there. Just a little tiny little bit. I know it seems fussy, but it's totally doable, I promise. Okay, so I've got that. I just don't want the glue to catch on there. There, that's perfect. Okay, and then on this part here, we're going to close it back up. And I want this one to fold under just like that. Okay. And I've got the measurements for the strips and everything that I cut in the cutting guide. Okay, yeah, I think that's going to be good. And I am going to miter these the backside here just so that they don't show when I glue them down. I mean, they might not. Yours probably wouldn't, but I might get it a little tiny bit crooked and it might show, so that way I don't have to worry about it. And then this little piece is going to just glue down here. So it's almost like a little belt, I guess. I don't know. It's a band, something like that. Okay, so now we've got something that runs over this just like that. It moves a lot smoother when it's on the page, when it's like held down somewhere. Okay, so now all we do is we just put our truck on. And I'm just gonna, tack them down in a couple places here. But I think actually I think what I'm gonna do, don't want it to catch there. Okay, I think that'll work. I'm gonna make a little mark underneath in here where the glue needs to be. There we go. And then I'm gonna come along here. And that's the bumper. There's the truck. I'm just going to glue it down on this strip. Okay. Sometimes when I have a lot of dimensions like that and I want to really push it down, I'll just flip it over so I don't run the risk of bumping into any of the things I've got on there while I'm rubbing my bone folder on there. But I still get the same pressure in place that I want. There we go. And it opens up and closes. I'm not sure why it's catching it. There we go. And it kind of, that front one there kind of wants to catch. Let me go in here and just make sure we're moving smoothly. There we go. Yeah, that is just exactly what I wanted to see. So I'm really happy. That's how you make the truck slider element. And then we're going to attach it to the gatefold pieces. So I'm going to fast forward that part. I think you guys all know how to attach gatefolds, and I'll be right back. Actually, no, I'm going to clean up my desk and I'll be right back. Gatefold pieces scored and burnished and, you know, ready to go onto the page. I've gone ahead and put my magnet on place here. I don't have the one on this side yet, but you'll see where that comes together. And I'm going to go ahead and put my pattern pieces on here. For the gatefold, you are going to need 4 pieces that are 2 7/8 by 6 1/8. And then we're going to need another piece that's roughly 2.5 by 2 7/8. And that's going to cover up this little piece here that folds over and catches the magnet. And then we're also going to need a piece that's 6 1/8 by 6 1/8 to cover the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put the glue on all of those, and I will be right back. Now we're going to add our truck slider element on the front. That's also going to act as our closure for this. And so what I want to be able to do is I want to glue this down, but I need to add a piece of pattern paper to the back of it first so that it doesn't show when I open it up. Okay, so I've got my piece of pattern paper here, and I'm just going to glue that onto the back. But before I do, I've got to find where, oops, I forgot. I've got to find where my magnet is. So put that down. Okay. So I want to set this about where I want it to be. And that's about right. Pick up that magnet. I'll put my pattern paper down. My glue looks like it's still wet, but just in case. A little extra. You really don't need a lot of art glitter glue, but I don't know, I tend to put a lot of everything on things sometimes. Which way do I have this? Okay, just like that. Oops. Go ahead and burnish it down. It just finishes it off and covers up that magnet. Okay, I'm going to let the magnet find itself and where it needs to be. That works for me. And I'm going to open it up and just sort of visually realize I need my glue to be somewhere around there. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to, from that pencil mark, just to the other side of the pattern paper, all the way to the back. I'm going to add my glue. And this might get a lot of action, so I'm kind of doing a lot of glue here because it's going to be pulled and tugged upon. I'm going to let the magnet find where it needs to go. And I'm going to kind of square it up here, press it down, open it up, and then really make sure that it's got good contact all around there. So I don't want it to, pull off. Let's check and see. We're good. Make sure I didn't have any coming out the sides. I am good all around. All around good stuff. Yay. Oh my gosh, it's so stinking cute. I just can't. I'm going to probably do some decorations around here, but that is our truck slider pole element attached to our gatefold on our page. I'm so happy. I think it looks really cute. Okay, I'll be right back.
I get so caught up in the middle, thinking of drowning in those blue eyes. I'm losing sight 'cause I am falling. I'm so deep down, and it's not a lie that I die. I can't hide what this is. Yeah, I keep drowning in those blue eyes.
And there it is. There is our truck slider gatefold page. I just love it. Okay, so now let's start working on the next page, which is a pretty simple page in comparison, but it kind of needs to be to balance it all out. So the next page is just simply a line of stickers that were included in this collection, in the Hello Valentine collection, and they were connected, and I just put them on some cardstock and fussy cut them out. And then I did the same thing with this little Happy Valentine's Day sentiment that was also in the sticker collection, and then made a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 photo mat. I believe it's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. Let's make sure. Oh no, I'm sorry, 5 by 5 photo mat, and put in there because I wanted something kind of simple to balance it, but I thought it was still really pretty. Now, on this Echo Park collection, they do have the little banner stickers, but they're not connected. They're individual banners. They've got ones like this and they've got ones like this. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna take a piece of scrap cardstock and we're gonna just sort of hold it up here. In fact, I'm going to, I've got glitter everywhere. Yes, I was playing with glitter. I mean, look at the little truck. Look at the tree. I put glitter on the tree. Oh, so fun. I thought I had the camera rolling. Sorry I didn't, but yeah, so cute. Okay, so sometimes I like to put a piece of white paper behind so I can sort of see where my edges are. And I want a banner to kind of go like this. So I'm going to, let's see, to make sure it doesn't wiggle on me, I'm going to just sort of clip that into place. Maybe. There we go. So I'm going to just start laying out my stickers because I'm going to use this as a background cardstock anyway. And I want to get an angle that I like over here. And I'm thinking I'll start like somewhere like this.
And you can tell me all of your lies. I will put out all of the fire. If it gets too dark, I'll be your light. Ooh, be your light.
Okay, and so then I'm going to fussy cut around them as if they were connected, even though they're not. And I think I'm going to go ahead and grab my Tombow pen again, and I'm just going to make like a little line, like if it were string between them. If I had been thinking, I would have actually put some string behind it, and that would have been cute. But I didn't really think about that at the time. So got that, like our little banner pieces here. And I'm just gonna fussy cut them out. We're gonna put them on top. I'm also, this is the matting that I've got for this page. This is gonna go on top once I've cut it out. I'm gonna come up with some sort of a sentence. Oh, probably this one. So much fun. Oh, that's so perfect. So I'm going to cut it out of here too. Let's put some glue behind it just to make sure. I have so much glue on my fingers. I think it's coming off onto the paper. Okay. We're going to kind of line it up here. If we don't get it straight, we can always trim out around it. Okay. I'm gonna cut that one out, and yeah, that's it for this page, other than the photo mat let's round the corners, and we'll put some paper on that. And I'll go ahead and fast forward while I do that, and I will be right back.
I'll be your light if it gets too dark. I'll be your light, be your light. I'll be your light if it gets too dark. Yeah, I can carry all that you've got. Two heavy hearts is not a lot. I will put out all of the fire. We stumble and fall.
So now this page is all done. I didn't really like the way this looked. It felt too busy. So I went ahead and cut another one. I'll use this as a tag in one of the pockets here. But yeah, I am liking the way this is coming together. So we completed page 4, and that was with the fun little truck slider element, which I just love, and the gatefold opening. And then page 5 was just this fun little sort of tuck spot series here with the photo mat. And now we're on to page 6. And page 6, if you remember, in the original 6.5 by 6.5, at least the Valentine version, we have a accordion fold pocket, an assortment of tags and cards and kind of just little journaling opportunities in here. A great place to put a bunch of pictures, and then some other little, places for photo opportunities and just a lot of cuteness. And then so that's page 6. And then the back page is the twist and pop card element. So we're going to finish those two. I set these aside. That's for the twist and pop one. The pop and twist. Pop and twist? I don't know where my brain is. Okay, so we're going to go on to page 6. And on that one, we're going to have a piece of cardstock that is 4.5 by 8 inches. And we're going to make an accordion pocket out of that. And this is going to be the pattern paper that covers that one. And it measures 5 7/8 by 3 7/8. And then we've got the paper that's going to go in the back on the page, and that one measures 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. I've gone ahead and inked my sides and gotten everything ready. And what we're going to do now is make the scores for our accordion fold pocket. My scoreboard is dirty, and I don't know if you guys have the same issue, because sometimes you'll get lint from the paper products. If you just take a microfiber cloth and wipe over it, just a dry microfiber cloth, it will clean it like it's brand new. It's a pretty handy little trick there. Okay, so I thought I was recording and I wasn't. And I don't remember where I left off, but we're going to go over this and I'll try to fix it in the editing. We completed page 4 and 5. And then I went on to do page 6. It's a really simple accordion fold here. Gives a nice bit of room here. And all of the measurements are going to be in the cutting guide, but it's really simple. It started with a piece of paper that was 4.5 by 8 inches. And then I scored at 1/2, 3/4, and 1. And then I scored at 7.5, 7 1/4, and 7. And so that gave me a 1/2 inch on either side, and the gussets are folded like an accordion, and they go on, put the pattern paper on the front, the back, and a flower that was from the collection, on the sticker collection. I just put it on a piece of cardstock and backed it with some cardstock and cut it out. Only put glue on this side here, so it's going to act as a little tuck spot on here. Now we have moved on to the twist and pop element on the back page, which is really fun. I do have a tutorial on that, so if you have other questions beyond what I'm showing you here in this video, feel free to, hop on over and look at that other video as well. I'll go a little bit more slowly on that one. So I started off with a piece of pattern paper on the back that measures 6 and what is the back? 6 3/8 by 6 3/8. I went ahead and glued that down, and I have a piece here that was 6 by 12. I scored in half at 6 inches along the 12-inch side, folded it in half. This is going to be a top fold element, so it's going to open from the bottom to the top. So I rounded the corners on the bottom where it's going to open up. I went ahead and put a magnet on the inside front cover right there. If you see my other videos, see I forgot to do that. So I wanted to make sure I did it that time. And then I just realized that my camera wasn't recording. So now I am getting ready to make the ribbon element that sort of acts as almost a handle or a pull or something like that to open the card. And how I do that is I fold my ribbon in half. I put it on the scoreboard. In this case, I've got 2 pieces of seam binding that I got from Country Craft Creations. I fold it in half. I want about 1/4 of an inch reveal. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape just shy of 1/2 inch, almost to the 1/2 inch mark. And I'm going to wrap it around to encase the ribbon. And I do this because it's easier for me to handle the ribbon when I'm trying to insert something kind of slippery like a satin ribbon or a seam binding or something like that. It just gives me something to hold on to. I trimmed it down just a little bit. I'm going to take off the backing for the tape. And honestly, that's probably the hardest part of this whole thing, is getting the backing off of the tape. I mean, it's not really difficult, but I'm just saying it sometimes takes a couple little tugs to do it. And then we're going to open up our card right where we put the magnet. We're going to put a dollop of glue close to the edge. I'd say, probably a little less than 1/8 of an inch from the edge. We want that to catch on the ribbon. And we want to line our ribbon up right there with the magnet. And there we go. Now we've got our little reveal and a little handle to pull on when we open it up. There we go. The pattern paper for the twist and pop element is as follows. We've got 4 pieces that are 1 7/8 inches roughly square. This was from some 2x2 cut aparts from the collection that I cut down just a little bit, trimmed it down to 1 7/8 inches, and went ahead and rounded the corners and inked the edges. We have a 4x4 cut apart that I trimmed down to 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. And then we have a 4x4 piece of cardstock that's going to act as a matting for that cut apart on the front of the card, essentially. Then we've got a piece for the cover, the very front of the card. And then we have 2 pieces for the inside of the card. I'm going to go ahead and put these inside pieces on here now. Hopefully I didn't miss recording a whole lot. I thought it was recording, but apparently it was not. And I think the only thing I missed was that pocket page, but I will find out when I finish and I go and look at the video to edit it. I guess I'll know then. Okay, put this piece down here. Just try to center it there, line it up with everything. Give it a good little burnishing. Get it put in place. Okay, and we'll put the second piece on, and these are the inside of the pop-up element. And you can make the pop-up element larger. You can make it smaller too, although I think it's probably the smallest I would make it for this scale. But I like this size because I can still fit 4x6 photos on both pages with the pop-up element in between it. So now I've got those 2 on. I don't want to forget my magnet this time, so I'm going to go ahead and grab one, let it take hold here on the back. And then I'm going to, maybe, okay, let's take hold on the back. I'm going to take a little piece of double-sided tape and cover it so that I can keep it into place. Okay. And then we're going to put together the front. So again, this piece here is 5 7/8 by 5 7/8, the same as the inside pieces are. And I went ahead and rounded the corners, inked the edges. We're going to attach this. And we're basically just covering a you know, top fold card opening right now with a magnet closure. Okay. I'm trying not to lean forward and get my head in the way of the camera, but I didn't realize how much I lean forward when I craft usually until I started trying to film things. And then we've got our 4x4 that we've trimmed down to 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 that we are backing onto a 4x4 piece of cardstock. And I had used this to make a photo mat on a previous page, and I didn't like the way it looked with the paper, so I just trimmed that down to 4x4. We're gonna use the back side of it, and it's gonna be just fine. It's really cute paper. I didn't really like it design wise. It seemed too busy with all the other things that were going on that page. And don't get me wrong, I have busy pages, like very busy pages, but I like to give your eye a break in between them. So, okay, and then now we're just gonna glue this down as our sort of decorative focal point on the front. Try to center it. Just, I mean, I'm not, believe it or not, I was a trim carpenter at one point, and the saying that we always said was, you know, we're not building kitchen cabinets here, although we actually were building kitchen cabinets. But I'm just saying this isn't like an exact thing right now, but I think it looks pretty good. I've got a pretty good eye for things like that. Anyway, so this is our little card element that we're going to have. Now let's go ahead and build the pop-up portion of it. And that is made with 2 pieces of cardstock that are identical in size, and they are both 2 inches by 8 inches. And the only difference is we're going to score them each differently. So on one, we're going to score in half at 4 inches on the 8-inch side, and we're going to score it in half at 1 inch on the 2-inch side. So we're basically just going to make a cross in half on both length and width. On the other one, we're going to put it in here, and on the 8-inch side, we're going to score it in quarters, okay? So we're going to, in this case, since it's 8 inches, we're going to score it at 2, 4, and 6. And that's going to give us 4 sections that are 2 inches by 2 inches. Now, when we go to burnish this, we want valley, mountain, valley. So we're going to start with the mountain in the middle. We're going to fold it in half. And then we're going to bring each side in to meet the middle. And I believe I said on the other video, you don't necessarily have to score this. You could just fold it in half, but it is nice to have, you know, straight lines like that. So you're going to have a piece that looks like this. Valley, mountain, valley, okay? And we are going to round the corners because our decorative elements are rounded. I love this corner chomper because I can go through 4 layers at a time. It makes it super fast. Okay, so again, we want to make sure we don't want it like this. We want valley, mountain, valley. I'm going to set that aside. And then on this one, we're going to fold and burnish our score lines that we made. And so it's going to be in half lengthwise, in half widthwise. And then we're going to do a weird little twist fold. So we are going to take and we're going to meet this score line to this score line. We're going to like just turn it clockwise, okay? So we're going to twist it over so that the lines meet up. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to create through that, through the cross in the middle, we're going to create kind of an X fold that goes right through that middle cross there. And I got off a little bit there. And if it's a little off, just give it a little tweak and kind of push it with your bone folder. Okay, that's good. So there's the first one. And now the second one, we're going to twist it the other way. Like this. And it's a little, you know, the first time you do it, it's a little, I don't know, it feels counterintuitive. You're kind of like, what am I doing? But then once you've done it a few times, it's a little easier. You kind of get a better feel for how it's all going to line up. Let me see. This one's a little off. There we go. Okay, so now when you have those, and you should be able to squeeze on the sides that kind of fold in, And when you squeeze them together, it's going to make a shape that looks like this. Okay, so we scored it, we're going to squeeze it together, and we have a shape that looks like this. I've heard it described as a house. I've heard it described as an arrow. But basically there's just there's two triangles at the top that are, you know, exposed. These, we can see they're actually triangle shape. And then you have these two legs at the bottom here that have the fold touching each other in the middle, and on the sides they're open. Okay. And then what we're going to do is, because we rounded the corners, we're going to round the corners on these open sides, not the fold sides of the kind of longer leg part. And on this one, it's pretty well lined up, but it doesn't matter how well you fold it. Something with that twisting mechanism, it seems like there's always this just tiny little sliver on one side that's longer than the other. So if that happens to you, I mean, it happens to me every time, just trim it off and you'll be fine. Okay, so now we've got our two pieces. This one, Valley, Mountain, Valley, sitting here. This one here, which is this kind of funny little arrow shape or whatever you want to call it. This one, we're going to open it up so that the sides are pointed up, so that the folds are up. So the triangles are on the bottom and the points are up. And on this one, again, Valley, Mountain, Valley, and we're going to attach them to each other. The reason I like this method is because you don't have to cut a whole bunch of, I've seen ones where it's like you start with this big piece of paper and you cut all these squares and it's really complicated. This one, it lines up every single time. It just does. It can't help but line up because they're the same size. So what we're going to do is on the upper left corner, we're going to put a little dollop of glue, and you're going to line the corners up. So this piece here, Valley, Mountain, Valley, pointed up. This piece here, we've got the folds pointed up on the legs on the sides. And we're going to hold it together here. Let that glue catch. Let's see how I did here. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. And then, so on the left-hand side, upper left-hand corner, we're going to put some glue. On this side, we're going to put some glue down here on the lower right-hand corner. And when I mean lower or upper, I mean above or below the fold. And as you can tell, I'm not even really getting close to the fold. I'm just kind of going in the lower third of the overall paper probably. Okay. And then we're going to burnish that. Make sure it's all lined up, looking great. And that is our twist and pop element. And like I said, I like it because it always lines up. I've seen ones where you have to glue one leg on the top and one on the bottom, and they always end up kind of wonky. And this one, it just, the legs work themselves out to where one's on the top and one's on the bottom, and it's great. So now we're going to add our decorative paper to this. Add it over here. Oh, there they are right here. Okay. So we've got the 4 pieces that I've prepared here, and I don't know what order do I want to put these in. Maybe like that. How about, there we go. Let's just do that one. We're just going to pick one and stick with it. I could probably move them around 20 times and it would never be any better than the others. So, okay. So then it's pretty simple. You just decorate these. Now these little, it's always groups of 4. The way I make this, there's always going to be a strip of 4. If it's a side fold card, your strip will be vertical. This is a, top fold card, and so the strip is going to be horizontal. So if you're going to do letters and write a word, like maybe you wanted to do LOVE, you would want a top fold card so it could be that way. Of course, I guess it could still work. It honestly could still work vertically. But this can be sized for different things. So let's say you wanted to put some 3x4 cut aparts in one. I mean, it would be a big card to do that. Let's say a 2x3 pictures or something like that. Well, then you would just make it so that if it needed to be, if it was 3x4, it needs to be 3 inches wide, and you've got 4 sections you're going to have to do, right? So you would have to begin with a piece of paper that was 12 inches by 4 inches. And so you would just have 2 identical strips that were 12 by 4. And you would do the same thing. You would score it in half on one, and you would score it in quarters on the other, and you would fold them in the same way, and you would just end up with a larger twist and pop element. Now, that being said, you're only limited to, it can't be bigger. So if your page is only 6 inches wide, you're probably not going to be able to do something. You can't do something that's bigger than 12 inches when it's opened up, because it's got to be able to fold in half and fit inside the page. And personally, I like doing them quite a bit smaller, like this one, because then I have room for other things on the page. Oh, I forgot one other important thing. The tip of this fold on this triangle, the point on this triangle, I always give it just a little trim there. I just trimmed off a little tiny bit. There's a lot of paper in that little spot, and it sits in the fold of the card, and I just feel like it's too much bulk. So, but you don't want to push this all the way up now that you've trimmed it off. It won't open correctly. So you need to back this back. You need to come up. Okay, first of all, back up, Caroline. Sorry. Once you have your element decorated, then you're going to insert it into your card. You open up the card, and it's going to be centered left to right or top to bottom, whatever with the fold is. It's on either side of the fold, and it's going to be centered in with the fold. The center line of it is the point is going to be with the fold. The element needs to be as if it were all the way to the peak of the fold there. But since I trimmed that off, I want to back it up just a little bit to give me some room as if that were still there. And I'm just going to eyeball this one. I'm not even going to measure it. And I am holding it in the center. Now it is centered left to right. It is not centered top to bottom. Top to bottom, I've got it up close to the fold again. Put the glue only on the triangle, and then close up your card. And just sort of let it set here for a minute or so that glue can have time to catch and bond with the fibers of the paper. And then I'm going to open up the back side, and I'm going to put glue on the other triangle and close up the card and let it set until the glue has caught. Okay. And so, like I was saying, you can do larger ones. You can have ones where there's pictures in there. You can put journaling cards. You can have all sorts of things in there. You could do a great big giant one. But I like that this is a smaller pop-up element with plenty of room to put pictures or journaling above and below it, because you get the effect of the pop-up, and you don't lose any of the you don't lose any of the space that you could have to put photos and things like that. Okay, so I think this is probably good. Let's open it up. And there we go. That is our twist and pop element. Isn't it neat? I just love it. Okay, so while we let the glue dry on our pop-up element, let's do a little bit of decorating on here. I feel like it's just yelling at me for some bling. I mean, that's what's happening, right? I've got a couple of little cutouts I could put on, a couple of rhinestones and things like that. So I'll just fast forward while I decorate this and we wait for that to dry. Okay, so I kind of blinged out my front here. Got it looking pretty cute. I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off of the back, or the backing off of the tape over the magnet. And we are going to glue this down on the back of our, the inside of our back cover. And this is going to be the last page element for our album. I've got 3 tags that we're going to make that are going to go into the page inserts. And I've already got those cut out. I used the Heartfelt Creations die set that I purchased from countrycraftcreations.com. And I will link that in the bottom as well. There we go. And we're just gonna center this guy on here. Get him looking pretty cute here. Go ahead and open it up. There's our fun little twist and pop. How cute is that? Isn't that fun? We want to just kind of burnish this down really good. It's a pretty big element, so we want to make sure that everything is everything has a good bond. I don't want it to pop up. Doesn't look like I got quite enough glue here in the front, so just add a little bit more. It's always around anything that's gonna, raise it up. So if you're inserting ribbons or pull tabs, or in this case, it's the magnet. It always kind of gives it a little. You have to get a little extra time to get it to make contact. But once it has made contact, it works really well. Okay, there we go. Okay, so there is our twist and pop element for our album, and I think it turned out really cute. I am going to move on to making some tags now for our page inserts. And for those, I use the Heartfelt Creations die set that I purchased from countrycraftcreations.com. And this is the die set, and there's so many pieces. There's 12 pieces that come with it. It's called the Album Tags and Accents die set, and it is really a great set. I would highly recommend picking that one up. But what I love about it is I love a tag that has a die option so that you can get these really nice reveals on the decorations on the tag. I think it looks really great. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all my pages down. I'm going to put some ribbon in them. I'm down to only these two little tiny pieces of seam binding. We'll see what we can do to make that work, or I might have some other in my stash, and I'll be right back.
And you can tell me all of your lies. I will put out all of the fire if it gets too dark. I'll be your light. Be your light. I'll be your light if it gets too dark.
Hello everyone. I have finished editing the tutorial, my first ever tutorial. Hooray! And in doing so, I realized that the last clip that I did, it didn't transfer correctly or something. Anyway, it's gone. So I think where we left off was I was covering these tags, these wonderful Heartfelt Creations tags, and I got them all taken care of, and I finished them. And then I went on to decorating this sweet album, and I added a little shaker element on the front. So much sparkle, and I added this sweet little decorative element here, and I used the pieces that I was auditioning for Inside the Book, remember? And then I found a place for it, for this sweet little saying here, the snowflake kisses. And when I do the backs of my albums, when I decorate the backs, I try to keep it as flat as possible, because it is going to be, it's getting a lot of movement typically. So yeah, I'm really glad I found a place for that. So we're going to open it up. I'm going to do a final little walkthrough for you. We have our sweet little waterfall. I have not gone through and added all of the decorations I want yet. Sometimes I wait until I add the photos on that. Then we've got our little openings here, and we modified from the original book from the hearts to the snowflakes. Over here, this is our mirrored image page, or our bookends page that folds out like this. Lots of room for photos and journaling. And then the star of the show, our sweet little truck slider card element. I added a bunch of bling to this, and oh my goodness, I love it so much. It's so stinking cute. And then we've got our more simple page over here. I did want to tell you that I went back and added a ribbon to the top of the banner element. And the reason I did that was it was a little flimsy. I felt like they were kind of moving around too much. And so that sort of strengthened it up, and it's cute. I mean, let's just be honest here. And it's just a really, really nice element, a little more subtle compared to the opposite page. And then on this accordion pocket was the one that I also didn't get the recording saved on. Really simple, just 1/4-inch accordion folds in there. Yeah, nice little places to put some tags for journaling. This pocket can hold a lot more stuff than I've got in it, and I still have room in here. So there's a lot of room in here for photos and journaling cards and things like that. And then when we get to our twist and pop, and I just love it. It's so much fun. It's really fun. So that is our entire album. I'm so excited to have done this. And in doing so, I really learned a lot about myself as a crafter, how I make things, kind of almost even how my own brain works. This has been a really helpful exercise for me. But I have an announcement to make, an exciting announcement. I set up a coordinating blog page to go with my new YouTube channel. I know, so many new things. I don't even know who I am right now. So I will have that linked in the description below. And that is where you're going to find the cutting guide that I was referencing throughout the video. I wasn't sure how to do it here on YouTube. That got me into a whole search on how I attach a PDF file, and I ended up setting up a web page. Who knew? So I'll have all of that linked in the description box below. This is my first ever full tutorial. I may have missed some spots. I may have not explained something very well. Please go to the web page, and I have an email address link in there. Feel free to send me a note, ask me a question. I would be happy to have discussions with you about it and just make new crafty friends, right? That's super fun. And finally, I have a huge thank you to offer to all of you. The outpouring of encouragement and support and just kindness that I have received from the crafting community has been amazing. I cannot thank you all enough. I would have never, ever done a tutorial video. I would have never thought I could open up or start a YouTube channel, and I certainly wouldn't have set up a web page. So all of this is thanks to you and your encouragement and your support and just your kindness to me, and I want to sincerely thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. So this concludes my video. I know it's really long. I apologize. Hopefully I will get better at this as we get going. I'm open to any feedback or comments that you have. I love it. I love hearing what you think and what you any suggestions you might have for me. And so that's it, guys. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope that you are kind to yourselves and just enjoy the journey. Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.